Hello and welcome to a Bergkamp Wonderland, an Arsenal podcast. My name is Kris and I will be your host for this evening. As you're probably aware, there's no Gimli. It's actually going to be, by the time this is released, it will be his birthday. So he's having a lovely night off to celebrate and be merry. And also, you might well notice there's no Danny either. It's like everybody's left the building and the cat flap is just flapping in the wind. There's no one here. But I will look after things. The rumor has it that Danny is actually practicing donuts in the local Asda car park. It's either that or eating them, but I'm sure he'll be back. So fear not, however, we have a fantastic lineup of guests for you this evening. So I'll get straight to it. First up, we've got a man whose chin is stronger than Jose Aldo's, and he pulls punches as crisp as an Anthony Joshua haymaker. It's Geoff Arsenal. Good evening, Geoff.
Good evening, Christopher. Is it Christopher? Is it or is Chris your name?
Long story short, it used to be Christopher. It's now Chris with a K and shortened. That makes you sound really pretentious, does it? There's a longer story for that, but I'll.
It used to be Christopher with a C.
It did, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, interesting. You'll have to tell us that over DM or something like that, I think.
I will. It's not that exciting, but. Next up, we have the king of the one-liners, the healer of the hamstrings, and a Jedi in training. It's Aussie Dom. You're right, Bush Wrangler?
I'm all right. How's things?
All good, my friend. All good. I hear you're off to South America soon.
Yeah, going to go make some more discoveries down there, see what's going on.
Taking over one country at a time, eh?
Yep, trying to.
Good stuff. Welcome aboard. Okay, up next we have blogger, radio guest, Bundesliga hipster, and fresh off a tour of duty educating New Yorkers on the beautiful game. It's Mr. Drew Thompson. Good evening, Drew.
Good evening, guys. And what Dom means by no discoveries is that he's going to find more phone numbers for his black book. So.
Oh, the dreaded black book. Danger. Thank you for coming on, Drew. Nice to have you available. And finally, we have a very special guest this evening. It's the original Arsenal podcast trailblazer. He's a multiple award winner and highly skilled dog whisperer. Archer, who's that at the door? It's Mr. Andrew Mangan of Arseblog. Good evening to you, Andrew. Pleasure to have you back.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Of course, nobody will get that joke unless they follow you on Soundcloud, of course, with your little chat with the dog. Very, very amusing. Look it up.
It's the most intelligent conversation I get every day, mostly. So,
tell me about it. Right, good to have you aboard. So, guys, we're going to launch straight into things. Let's start where we always do, with scores on the doors. I will kick us off. The under 21s. I just had the one game since we last recorded. It's on Monday, the 14th of December. A 1-1 draw away at West Ham United. Pike, stupid boy, I should say. He put West Ham in front, and it was equalised by Chris Willock in the 81st minute. And that leaves our under-21s third in the table on 19 points. But they have actually played four games less than top of the table Derby County on 22 points. So things are moving in the right direction there. Their next fixture is Monday the 22nd of December, and that's at home to Aston Villa under-21s. So they'll be hoping for a win there. So what's happening with the loan watch next up? Drew, I believe you've been keeping on the loans in the absence of Danny this week.
Yeah, trying my best. We'll start with in Italy. Wojciech Szczesny actually got a clean sheet against Napoli, so it's impressive. He has 2 in his last 3 appearances, so he continues to be first choice there. Carl Jenkinson only got 2 minutes at Old Trafford against United. He came in for Mara Zarate in the 88th minute. Yaya Sanogo did not play at the weekend, and he has not featured in the Eredivisie since Ajax's 2-2 draw at FC20 back on September 9th. Serge Gnabry was not used in the 2-2 draw against Liverpool. His last appearance came in the 3-0 loss against Norwich in the Capital One Cup. Ainsley Maitland-Niles played 78 of the 90 minutes in Ipswich 1-0 away win at MK Dons and on the weekend. And yesterday he played 88 of the 90 minutes in the 2-1 away win at Fulham. Chuba Akpom scored the only goal in Hull's 1-0 home win at the weekend against Bolton. He now has 3 goals this term for them as well. He's tied for second in the first team in goals. Stefan O'Connor played the entirety of York's 2-1 away defeat at Bristol Rovers on Saturday. Gideon Zelalem played 61 minutes in a 2-2 draw against Greenock Morton. John Farrell and Emiliano Martinez neither featured for Middlesbrough against Middlesbrough and for respectively, rather. Isaac Hayden has not featured since the League Cup loss to City on December 1st for Hull, and Wellington Silva did not feature for Bolton yesterday or at the weekend, and his last appearance came back on October 20th.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Drew. Thorough, quick, love it. We should say as well for our regular loyal listeners, that is Ashley Maitland-Niles, Conservative. Of course. Right, injury update then. Dom, it would be foolish of us to not take advantage of your skills and knowledge on this this section. We could go for hours, but give us just a brief synopsis on the players that are likely to be returning anytime soon. And I think we've had some information on Danny Welbeck having a little setback. There's a surprise.
Okay, well, we can speak a bit more about Welbeck in depth if you like afterwards, but just go through the most likely to return in order. So Alexis has got a bit of a hamstring. He should be back. I don't think he'll play this week. I know there's people that think that he may make the bench, but I think that you don't want to risk him being out again, and especially when we're pretty short in that area as it is anyway. So potentially on the bench because it's Alexis and he's a bit of a exception to the rule. We all know what he's like, but I can't see him doing much this weekend. Potentially the week after, I think we might see him back. Then Arteta, who's taken over from Diaby as the new team tampon. He's in for 1, out for 3. Calf problem again. So, look, I don't see him stringing many games together. I think that it's pretty clear now that his body is not able to produce the elite level required as far as fitness goes. He has a bit of a strain, gets back up to fitness and breaks down after a week. So, unfortunately, he's, again, recovering from a calf problem and there's not really an expected return date. That's a bit of a tricky one. And then I guess it would probably be Coquelin. Has a medial problem in his knee. Didn't require surgery, so it wasn't a full rupture. Sandy Cazorla's apparently was, so he had surgery a couple of days afterwards. So his recovery will be a lot longer than what Coquelin's will because he'll be in a boot. The joint will be immobilised for a lot longer. And Welbeck's an interesting one. He's got some bone bruising or had some bone bruising in his knee. And what tends to happen is that as soon as you start putting impact through that joint again, the bones can actually you actually create pathways from your brain to your knee and it just produces swelling. Swelling's your body's natural safety mechanism. So if you roll your ankle or sprain a joint, you'll notice that it swells. That's your body trying to basically keep that joint still. It's just a way of saying that there's an injury there and don't move it. But we don't need that information anymore because we've got MRI scanners and things to tell us that. But unfortunately, those pathways still exist. It's an ingrained thing that we've had around for a long, long time. And so what happens is once he starts to get up and running and he puts enough impact through that joint, those pathways flare up, it sends more fluid down there and he can't really do anything about it except rest. And so that's why he was put on ice last year, had a bit of an operation to see if it can get better. With the setback, it sounds like all that's happening is that once he gets up and running and he starts putting impact through the joint, the swelling returns. So it's anybody's guess when he'll be fit. I'm not even sure that he'll play much this year, to be honest.
It's a bit of a worry, isn't it? Just one other quick one I just wanted to ask you about. Olivier Giroud, obviously we're all praying he's fit, although at least Theo's coming back. He had that sort of nasty-looking twist against Olympiacos and then shook it off and did what he did. And he played again at the weekend. Any concern for you with that? You know, is that something that was just literally a very quick impact injury and he ran it off, or could that be a
he probably just stretched his ligaments in the ankle just a little bit on the outside of his ankle there. It didn't look like it went over far enough to rupture anything or strain anything too bad. But, if you've ever, done that before, you know that it can be quite painful for a little while, and it can quite often stiffen up after you stop exercising or running around. So he'll be fine. I've got no real concerns with that one.
No, absolutely. Andrew, I know you had, listening to your pod last week, you went to the physio and found out some very similar information, didn't you?
Yeah, I think the difference is I'm just old and knackered. So.
And Dom would probably say the same as Arteta on that. I can hear him saying it from here. Right, good stuff. Okay, appreciate that, Dom. Thank you very much. As usual, if anyone's got any questions, I'm sure you'll be happy to help them out if they want to ask you any questions on Twitter if you get the time. But let's move it on then. I want to start this week, guys. We had some information sort of filter through last week that certainly one of my favourite players, probably of all time in fairness, decided to hang up his boots. That was Gilberto Silva, former Arsenal captain, of course, just to sort of put some of our newer listeners in perspective. He was signed from Atletico Mineiro after the 2002 World Cup, joined Arsenal in August, and he actually scored in his debut when we clinched the Charity Shield victory over Manchester United, and scored the fastest ever Champions League goal at PSV Eindhoven in September of the same year. And he featured in Arsenal's 2003 FA Cup final success and scored in 2004 Community Shield, and returned from injury. And he helped us win the FA Cup in 2005 and also played in the 2006 Champions League final. We won't go into any more detail on that one. And 244 appearances, 213 starts, 31 as sub, 24 goals. That bit surprised me, to be honest. He played for us between 2002 and 2008. I just thought it'd be nice for us to all pay a sort of a brief tribute to Gilberto and maybe share a memory or two. So I'll start with you, Andrew, as our guest. The Invisible Wall. What's your kind of fondest memory of Gilberto?
Don't know about what my fondest memory is. I think he's one of those players that you look on in hindsight, and he was much better than you thought he was. You know, there were times, maybe he came into English football at a time when the midfield enforcer role was still quite prevalent, and you had to be a guy who really got stuck in and really kicked people and tackle hard to be appreciated. And he clearly wasn't that kind of guy. He was a very intelligent player. His positioning was great. I mean, if you think about what this team might need right now, someone like Gilberto would be absolutely fantastic. I thought, you know, the way that it ended for him at Arsenal was really quite unfortunate. I don't think he deserved to be treated the way he was treated. Certainly not for a player like William Gallas. You know, he was a really solid player. Took a good penalty, and I think people look back on him now and really appreciate what a big player he was for us, and how important he was, and just how good he was as well.
Yeah, well said, absolutely. Geoff, you've seen a lot of faces come and go and sort of through the eras and different players, different positions. What was your thoughts on Gilberto as a man, as a footballer, as a captain at times as well?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what it is. It's fitting to say that we haven't really replaced him since then. We haven't had that natural defensive midfield player. If you take Cock out of the equation, of course, obviously he's nurtured into that position at the moment, but I mean, it's taken such a long while to get to that stage. I mean, we haven't replaced him. There's a reason for that being is there's not been that many out that have been as good as him. He was superb for us, and because he didn't get a lot of the plaudits, but my God, he was like the glue that stuck everything together. And you know, we did suffer once we lost him. And like Andrew said, I think it was unfortunate and a little bit sad the way he left the club and the way he was set aside. I still think we should have kept him for another couple of years. His experience and everything else, I think it would have been great for the lads. But what a fantastic player for Arsenal Football Club. I enjoyed watching him all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if it's a sort of a case almost like Bobby Pires. Had it been now, I wonder if he had have got that extra year. I think he probably would have done. Drew, what was your sort of memories of Gilberto and any sort of tribute you want to pay to him?
Well, I mean, I think we all have the same memories, right? But I think for me, when I think about him, I consider the fact that not enough people, at least for me, speak about him today in regards to his importance to the club. And I think, Geoff brought it up and Andrew as well. But in a team that was so good with their shape, so good on the defensive side of things, but everyone still always talks about Robert Pires and Dennis Bergkamp, but no one still really mentions Gilberto Silva enough for me, because I think without him, that Invincibles team wouldn't have been the same. And I think that's the highest praise I could probably actually give him. And I also agree with Geoff that, Coquelin's doing a wonderful job. Coming from SC Freiburg, playing out on the left, now becoming a holding midfielder for us. But I agree, we still haven't replaced him, and that speaks volumes.
Yeah, absolutely, well said. And finally, Dom, some wise words. What's your recollections of Gilberto?
I think everyone's covered it pretty well. I definitely agree with what Drew says. You speak to, well, a lot of the players in the current team have said what Coquelin's been able to come in and do, and it allows them to go forward with the freedom and confidence that they know that they've got someone like him able to sit back and clean up the mess, or that's defensively minded and helps out. And I think that's exactly what he was able to provide players in that Invincible side, where people talk about Vieira as a defensive midfielder, but we know that he was much more of a box to box midfielder. He used to push high up the pitch, and the only reason that he could do that was because he knew that he had such a good player in behind him that was just so defensively minded and so smart and aware of his position. So absolutely, Drew, spot on. I think that team would not have been the same and wouldn't have been able to play with the same freedom and free flowing football without that anchor, that insurance policy that he provided.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. I just wanted to say, I wanted to touch a tribute. He's certainly one of those players that falls into the probably slightly underappreciated catalogue. And my main sort of memory, as far as a bit of a weird one, because he wasn't known for his goals, but I don't know if you guys remember the header he got against Leicester. I think it's back in 2005 era. maybe even earlier than that. But he scored sort of a flying header after a breakaway where he just broke his neck to get in on the end of it and lashed it into the net. And I just remember that being just a wonderful sort of moment. And of course, the first goal at Emirates Stadium belongs to him.
And he
as well.
also, I think he scored our fastest ever Champions League goal. Could have been against PSV.
That's the one, yeah.
Away from home after about 25 seconds, something like that.
Yeah, it was. Looking it up here. 20. No, it's disappeared. No, I think it's around about 20 odd seconds or something ridiculous, wasn't it?
Right,
And it's the record still stands to this day, and again, just a real feature of the team at that point, just the free flowing nature, just sort of at the opposition from the first whistle. So really underappreciated player, and I think there's talk that he might actually stay on at the club in some capacity as some sort of agent for the players. So that'd be nice to see. But good stuff. Thank you very much for sharing those memories, guys. Let's move it on then. Let's talk about the here and the now. Aston Villa away from home on Sunday, a 2-0 victory. Goals from Giroud from the penalty spot and Aaron Ramsey. 33,000 at Villa Park. Geoff, I'm going to start with you. On the back of the Olympiacos game, obviously we're at a high. I know some people were just a little bit concerned that we could have the old After the Lord Mayor's show. Never really looked like it, though, did it, to be honest?
No, I think it was, everyone was a little bit concerned, being such a euphoric win in Olympiacos. We have done in the past anyway, had a little stumble, especially at away games. And you know what? I think we handled it really, really well. Villa, don't get me wrong, they're not the best side in the world, but by a long shot, I know that, and they didn't really offer too much. The early penalty settled us down. I'm pleased that Giroud has taken over the penalties now, because that one, it will get his scoring up, but two, I don't understand how centre forwards don't take more penalties. You see a lot of midfield players, a lot of defenders that take penalties for teams now, but surely a centre forward, he is the one that's striking on goal mostly in training and in matches. So I don't see how from that far out a centre forward doesn't take it. That settled us down, and to be honest with you, there wasn't really a lot more. We scored again. I think it was the 38th or something like that minute, and then we just totally controlled the game. I mean, Villa tried a little bit, but they really wasn't. They wasn't really a match, and I think we were playing in third gear, wasn't we? To finish with you.
Yeah, it's quite nice to be able to. I think even the manager said after the game that the sort of second half the legs went a little bit, but the word he used was mature, which is something we're going to need to be moving into the sort of Christmas period with so many games. Andrew, I want to ask you about Aaron Ramsey. Now, I know that you share my love of Santi Cazorla. I get a lot of stick on this pod because a lot of people sort of thinking that he probably should score more goals for us. But in his absence, Aaron Ramsey has moved into his favoured central role, and of course creating and eventually scoring the goal that he got for himself. What's your thoughts moving forwards on Ramsey? Do you feel like he's looking back to his very best in that position?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, he's come off the right-hand side. Well, he's been out injured, obviously, but he's come off the right-hand side, and in 3 games in the centre of midfield, he's scored 2 and assisted 2. So I think you look at him as a player who really produces things, and just going back to Cazorla, I think you can love Santi Cazorla as a player and as a man, but also think that given the quality he has, that he could contribute a bit more in terms of goals. He's got amazing quality, but he had that great first season. I think he scored 12 or 13 goals, and then his shooting seems to have gone off the boil. But Ramsey, yeah, I mean, I think the key thing now is keeping him fit, because he is just a fantastic central midfield player. He's just so dynamic. He makes things happen. He tries things. What I really like about him is that he doesn't ever hide. Even if he's not playing particularly well, he'll still try and make something happen, when the easy option for him to perhaps bump his passing stats up would be, a safe pass, making it, sideways or backwards, but he will try and make things happen. And I think players like that who take risks can often be divisive in a way that people might say, well, look, he's lost possession here, he's lost possession there, but that's the sort of the counterbalance of him trying to make things happen the whole time. Where I think what's going to be really interesting over the next few weeks is when January kicks in. I think in order for Ramsey to function really well in midfield, or to help the team function as well as it should, he needs real security behind him. I watched the Sky punditry the other night, Jamie Carragher and Frank Lampard, talking about how Ramsey has to, do a bit more defensively, and I think that's reasonable. But I also think that with more security behind him, with a more powerful, with a more dynamic holding midfield player, that would offset the fact that he gets forward quite a bit. So I'm very interested to see what Arsene Wenger does in January. If he can find that player, that's going to be the key thing. At the moment, Flamini's doing an okay job there, and that's not to criticise him, but I don't think anybody would say that he's the long-term option. And with Coquelin out and Arteta in and out, and we do need a signing in there. So it'll be very interesting to see if he can find the right player, because I think if he finds the player who can work in tandem with Aaron Ramsey, that's the Arsenal central midfield for years to come.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Certainly be interesting to see when everyone's fit what the sort of lineup is. And a couple of stats for Aaron Ramsey's last 3 games for Arsenal: 2 goals, 2 assists, 7 shots, 6 chances created, and an 89% pass accuracy. It's not bad, I think it's fair to say. Dom, I want to touch on 2 things with you quickly. Just on Aaron Ramsey briefly himself as well. There was also this stat that went around that he covered 12.4 kilometres, which is just amazing during that game against Villa, sort of the box to box that we've all been craving. Just briefly on the injury side of things, is that remotely a worry for you, given his sort of nature of soft tissue injuries? Do you think he needs to be a bit more game savvy, if you will?
Well, yeah, it's a concern for sure, but you can't curtail the way that he plays. I mean, that's just what he does. It's more the problem lies in the fact that we don't have a Jack Wilshere or a Santi to come in and rotate and manage his. It'd be fine if he wasn't just coming off a hamstring problem. So I've said it a lot before that the guy, for me, is more injury prone than Jack Wilshere. And what I mean by that is that Jack Wilshere's body isn't letting him down. He gets kicked in the ankles too much, and it's more of a the way that he invites tackles and holds the ball to the last minute, that teams target him, and a lot of those tackles that he gets, my feet would break too. It's nothing to do with having glass bones. Aaron Ramsey's body lets him down because he can't string 10 games together without a hamstring problem or a soft tissue injury somewhere, and that's very much a biomechanical issue. And it's an extremely difficult thing to work on halfway through a season, to take somebody and to try to change the way they're moving or strengthen certain areas, because they're too busy training, they're too busy working on game things. So, and when you have a history of the injury, you've got scar tissue, which will then make the muscle not as pliable, which then increases the risk of it going again. So the concern is that, the guy covered 12 point something kilometres, that's what you want to see from him. That's the biggest difference that he gives you in that midfield position over Santi Cazorla, is that we saw him, and I've said it a lot of times before, his engine isn't just the best at the club, it's probably one of the best that I've seen for a long time in all of football. It is elite. It is amazing what that guy can do, and it's the repeat effort work. So what you see from him in the first 5 minutes is what you see from him in the 90th minute. Hence why you see him tackling someone in the opposition area, and then all of a sudden he's up in our area scoring a goal. That's what he can give you that maybe Santi can't, is that, Santi's been quite good at getting back and helping defensively, but that's where his contribution to that passage of play ends. Whereas Ramsey can do that, then he can also get forward and help out. And as a opposition midfielder, you see him just charging through the midfield, and you just look up and go, "Are you serious?" And that's why he finds himself in the box in goal-scoring opportunities by himself so much, is because no one can go with him. So you sort of sit there and think, well, do you take that part of his game away? Do you tell him not to make those runs and just calm down a little bit? Because it's what makes him such a fantastic midfielder at the same time.
Yeah, well said. And if anyone would know about sort of the biomechanics, it would be your good self. So that's good to know. Just sticking with you briefly on Olivier Giroud as well, I just want to touch on some bits and bobs with him. 9 of his 13 goals this season have come away from home, which was a stat I just picked out because I sort of really like the idea that he's a player that we can rely on even in the tough games away from home. And pulling from the official site, 878 minutes, 8 chances created, 8 goals in 15 games. It's not bad, is it, for a guy who, a lot of people sort of still don't rate. He's very divisive, but pretty damn good, isn't it?
I think he's just we've been blessed with strikers over the years, with the Van Persies and the Henrys and Bergkamps and Wrights, and going back into the Smiths even. And he's just not a sexy striker. He's just not a sexy looking player. Well, he's a sexy looking man, but as far as he just doesn't have that Sanchez or Aguero or But some of the goals that he scores, I think if someone put together, an Olivier Giroud top 10 goals, they'd match up with anybody's in the world. He's scored some absolutely cracking goals. It's just, I don't know, whatever it is, he just isn't as prolific maybe as what people would like. He does miss a few chances as well, but all good strikers do. I'm not sure. If he cost £45 million when we bought him, would people sort of be giving him as much grief as they do? I don't know. But I think the guy, what he contributes to the team, not only goal scoring ability, but the way that he links up. Every time recently with the goals that we've scored, he's involved somewhere. It's usually Ramsey, Ozil, Giroud, Ozil goal, or so he's in there somewhere in the lead up to all of these goals. I think he's extremely important with the way that we set up and play, and especially away from home, where teams might have a little bit more of a go at us, that we can play a little bit more, counter-attacking or score some headers from set pieces and things like that. So he's definitely got a lot to his game, that's for sure, but he's just not quite the same flashy player that we're used to, I guess.
Yeah, well said. I'm totally with you as far as just doesn't look. He's like not the young, quick, nippy kind of striker, so everyone just assumes that he's not as good, but certainly his stats don't lie. Drew, popular feature on this podcast is Ozil Watch. I know you're quite the fan of our beautiful German man. Do you want to give us some stats on how Mesut's getting on currently?
Sure. Well, as we're all aware, he got the assist for Aaron Ramsey's goal in the 2-0 win against Villa on Sunday. It was his 13th in the Premier League this term, which is 6 clear of both Riyad Mahrez and Gerard Deulofeu. He's had the most assists out of anyone in Europe's top 5 leagues since in this season, and since August 2013, no one in the Premier League has more assists than he does. Don't forget, though, he's nicking a living. There's that. And I forgot to mention that he's created the most chances domestically this year, and he has the most key passes this year. So it's 42 million well spent.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, David Moyes remains unconvinced. The jury's still out. Just sticking with you, Drew, as well. I just also want to get your thoughts on Laurent Koscielny. For me, he's fast becoming one of Europe's best defenders. I'm probably a little bit biased, but what do you make of his performance? He seems to be going from strength to strength, doesn't he?
I got in this debate maybe a couple of weeks ago with someone who said, actually it was Ahmed, our friend Ahmed. He said that on their day, Koscielny and Mertesacker are the best center-back pairing in Europe. And I actually got upset with him because I thought that was really biased. A lot of our fans sometimes do have our biases for our players. I think that's normal, but sometimes you have to be a little reserved in that in a way. However, I do agree with you that Koscielny is absolutely vital to us. I think without him, we're not the same as well. But I do feel like he's coming to in the age now where it's the defender's prime. And just on the balance of his play over the last, I guess ever since after his first season, you could probably argue that he's progressed every year. And at the moment, you would probably say he's in with a shout for best center back in the Premier League at minimum. And I feel like that's something we've lacked ever since, I guess the golden days, for lack of a better term. So no, I'm pleased with how he's playing, and I'm pleased with his contributions and how important he is to us. And I'm pleased that also, more importantly, him and Cech are on a good wavelength. And when a new goalkeeper comes in, you always have some worry that they have to bed with the new defense, and the new defenses get used to him. But, and all of us spoke about that a lot in the summer and in the first, couple of weeks of the season. But you see the way those two communicate. And then when you add Mertesacker in there with his experience and his ability to marshal defense, those three, I think that three combination is probably the best in the league, and it shows because we right now, I do believe, have the second best defensive record in the Premiership right now. So it speaks volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Petr Cech, I should mention, of course, his record equaling performance, the record of David James, 169 clean sheets in 349 Premier League games, which I think is almost half the amount of time that David James took. And I think there's also another stat that David James also conceded the highest amount. So it's all interesting, but some credit to Petr Cech. He was superb. Just going to draw a line under Aston Villa. I want to come back to you, Andrew. I just want to briefly touch on Joel Campbell, Theo Walcott, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain situation. It's kind of a nice problem to have with Alexis due back or is back in training now, whether he starts or not against Manchester City. Touch wood, assuming all of those four are fit, and I'm touching everything wooden in my house right now, but assuming those four are fit, it's kind of a nice problem to have, isn't it, when you've got that choice available on both sides of the pitch?
Yeah, sure is. An unusual problem to have maybe this season as well, because the injuries that we've had have been in the wide areas. I've got a sneaky feeling Alexis will play against Manchester City. So it's about who plays on the right-hand side. And I guess what's interesting, if you look at the last few games, is Theo Walcott started on the right-hand side. Was it away at Olympiacos? And after about 20 minutes, Arsene Wenger moved him over to the left-hand side and put Joel Campbell on the right. And Campbell started on the right against Aston Villa as well. So I think there's something to be read into that, in the sense that it's unusual. I think injuries have forced Arsene Wenger to play Theo Walcott in the wide position. I don't think he really wants to play him there anymore. but he didn't have much choice in the last couple of games because of the injuries. I think he likes or will like to rotate himself and Giroud, and maybe you could look at Manchester City as the kind of game, similar to Manchester United perhaps, where you could use Walcott up front and use that pace and the way that the team works around him, because it is different from the way it works around Giroud. But then, Giroud has been playing so well and scoring so many goals. How do you drop him for a big game like that? So it is going to be interesting. I do wonder what exactly he's going to do. I think before the season started, you would have said Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain was ahead of Joel Campbell in the pecking order, and I think in the long term that will probably prove to be the case. I think in the manager's mind, he will look at Oxlade-Chamberlain as a player with more potential, but he's really struggling for form at the moment. He's not playing particularly well. He doesn't look very confident. Little things just aren't coming off for him. It might just take something happening for him, a goal or a run or an assist or just something to get his confidence back up. But so far, he hasn't really done it this season. Campbell's form has been pretty good. So I do wonder if everyone's fit for Monday, whether we might see Alexis one side, Campbell on the other, and then the choices between Giroud and Walcott up front.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree with you there. Just on Joel Campbell as well, could you have foreseen the sort of, I don't know if the change in attitude is the right thing to say, because obviously we're not privy to what goes on, but could you have even foreseen this sort of performance that he's had since he's come into the side?
I think the issue was you had to look at the situation not just based on what Joel Campbell did, and we didn't really get to see an awful lot of what Joel Campbell did, but the way that he was treated by the manager. I don't mean that he was treated badly or anything else. I just mean that where he appeared to be in the pecking order, right? So let's make the ludicrous assumption that everybody at Arsenal was fit going into the start of this season. I know it's a pipe dream, but for the wide positions, you've got Alexis, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Welbeck, Ramsey for the right-hand side, Wilshere for the right-hand side, Rosicky there as well, Walcott perhaps also an option for those right-hands, for those wide positions. So in the pecking order, Joel Campbell was way down there, and it took something like an injury crisis for him to be given a chance. But that was true also of Francis Coquelin. It was true as for Hector Bellerin as well, to an extent. Bellerin a little bit different because he was a young player making his first breakthrough. Coquelin had been there and was out on loan. Campbell had been there and was out on loan. So I don't know that it was. It's not unprecedented in any way, but it was surprising to me that we had this situation. Well, okay, maybe I shouldn't be surprised at the injury situation that gave him his chance, but I was a little bit surprised that when he came in, he played as well as he did, and I'm happy to be surprised by it. It's a really nice surprise when a guy comes in. I think he's got a couple of goals, a couple of assists, and I think he's reaping the benefits of playing a bit more regularly and perhaps feeling a bit more part of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And at the end of the day, if they're playing well, they keep their place. So, as you say, it's a pleasant surprise to have. Super. Let's draw a line under Aston Villa then. Let's move it on to Monday's Champions League draw. And surprise, we got Barcelona. Lovely job. Couple of brief stats. I just want to get you guys' thoughts on what's happening here. So, Barcelona, 1 defeat in 37 at the Camp Nou. Only 6 of those have been draws. That's quite a scary stat, I found out. And the Neymar, Suarez and Messi combination, they've scored 32 goals in 27 games in total this season, which is just boggles my mind. However, they've only actually scored 4 goals from other players in the squad, which I thought was an amazing stat. So only 4 of the players have scored, and they only scored 1 each as well. And this was a stat that really blew my mind. And Geoff, you'll remember this one. The last time that Barcelona scored first and lost in the Champions League was against Arsenal in 2011, which is just, again, just completely blew my mind. That night at the Emirates, David Villa put them in front, and a certain person and Arshavin won us the game. And then I just wanted to highlight quickly on Luis Suarez, because everyone knows about Neymar and Messi, but Suarez, of course, there's going to be all these talk about how we nearly signed him and all that jazz once again. But again, his stats are quite scary. The one that I really picked out was that he seems to get a lot of his goals inside the 6-yard box, particularly in La Liga this season, which really surprised me because you expect him to score from all sorts of positions, but 5.5 rating generally of his goals are coming in that area out of 10, so it's quite a high percentage. Let's get some thoughts from the panel. Geoff, I'll start with you. Were you remotely surprised when the old Barcelona ball fell out the draw?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it was just bound to happen, wasn't it? I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's an incredibly difficult tie, but it's not above Arsenal. I think we could. It wouldn't surprise me if we could beat them. It's going to be difficult though, isn't it? The front three that they've got is they're front loaded, obviously, and that front three, if we can just contain them. And give ourselves something to look forward to, pardon me, into the second leg. You never know what's going to happen. And like I say, we could go out there and have an Arsenal moment. Defensively, I don't think they're the best team in the world. So if we can perform how what we are capable of doing on a big night, we've got a good chance. But having said that, I said it on Twitter the other day that if you do go out to Barcelona, it might just do us a favour because I think we've got a fantastic chance of winning the Premier League this year. And if you are going to get knocked out, you might as well get knocked out earlier rather than later. And let's be honest, these European nights against a fantastic team like Barcelona, that is what it's all about. So I'd be disappointed to go out if we do get beat. But I don't think it's going to be the end of the world for us because I think we can push on then for the Premier League. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this is why we're in it, to draw these teams at the end of the day. Dom, Geoff sort of touched on it there about the defensive record. I was doing some swatting up on this one as well, and you'd be surprised to know that Barcelona actually apparently have the 5th best defence in the Champions League, an average rating of 7.2. We are only 2 places behind them in 7th in the ratings. Do you sort of look at our approach to this game and think that we just need to treat it like a game that we can go and win, almost the Bayern Munich effect, where you just go out there and you play your game and you hope you get the right result, or would you rather see us kind of pack the defence and hope for the best?
I think there needs to be a happy medium. If we go, I think the biggest issue for me and the concern in the past is when the managers maybe copped a little bit of criticism from being a little bit too stubborn and refusing to change the way that we go about approaching the big games, and we are a little bit naive and maybe push a little bit too hard and get stung because these teams are full of such good quality attacking players. Over the last couple of seasons, though, we've seen us sit back against Manchester City and pick them off and have a good win there. We've seen it against Bayern Munich recently where we sat back a little bit and used our counter-attacking and took some opportunities to get a win there. So if we set up like that against them, then you never know. But if we go out and try to go toe-to-toe with Barcelona, I think that it's going to be another 5-1 mauling like the Bayern Munich game, to be honest. But they are probably the best team in football at the moment. Or maybe them and Bayern Munich, and it's difficult to think that over two legs that realistically we're going to be able to get through. But I'm a little bit with Geoff, it's going to be great. I'm going to be sitting down and watching and hoping that we can do something amazing. But if we don't, then I think that it gives us a really good chance to kick on in the Premier League, because if City get through and have to play a few extra games and a bit more travelling, and they're starting to creep up a little bit with the injuries themselves, so. And then Manchester United obviously are in the Europa League, which is going to be on the Comedy Channel, I'm sure. So that's going to cost them, a lot more travel and time as well. And so, yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity for us this year to push on and have a good shot at the title. So I'm hoping that the manager gets his checkbook out early in January and that we don't wait too late and that we can get what we need and kick on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that one. Drew, with regards to the a couple more statistics for you here. I'm turning into our very own OG. It's scary, but Barcelona's goals, if you look at the sort of minutes they get them, 26% or 26.7% is during the 15th to the 30th minute, 20% during the 45th to the 60th, 26.7% in the 75th to the 90th. We're going to have to be 110% focused on every minute of these games, basically, to get anything out of it. What's your kind of game plan, particularly in the away leg where we've lost 2-1, 4-1 and 3-1 in our last 3 visits?
Well, I mean that's the question, isn't it? Because I think we can all agree if we nicked like a 2-1 at the Emirates or even a 3-1, we'd still have to go to the Camp Nou and not get absolutely trounced, and that's the thing. That's the question mark. So what people also don't understand is Barca are a very patient team, and they play differently in Champions League than they do in La Liga, which is why their defensive record in Champions League is much better than it is in La Liga at the moment. They're just very patient. They don't go out like maybe some other sides like like your Real Madrids and your Bayerns and like frantically try to get early goals because they know for a fact that they're going to score. It's just a matter of when. So going into the away leg, you yourself have to be patient. Like Dom said, you can't go to the new camp and expect to take it to them and not lose 4-0. That's just the way of things. So I wouldn't be opposed to adopting a different shape into the team as well. If you're away against Barca, you're gonna have to give them the respect they deserve. You're gonna have to give them possession, and you're gonna have to sit deeper and not try to give Suarez, Neymar, Messi that space in the back, because if they get behind you or into the 18-yard box, it's more than likely that they're going to score. So I wouldn't mind seeing like a change in shape into like a 4-3-3, maybe pack the middle a little bit, condense the back four, so you give them the cross, because we'll be able to handle them in the air because their front three, they may be good in the air, but I would say that we're probably better. And it's also Petr Cech as well. I just think that you have to sit back and counter, but you have to also think that we're not going to get a lot of chances. So we have to be, like you said, on our A game every minute. So when we do get a chance, if we do, we have to take those chances, because they might be few and far between, and we're going to have to defend like lions that day. So it's just a matter of how we show up. But we can't show up with the usual attacking mentality. It would completely burn us before halftime.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew, I know you sort of former resident of Barcelona, so you would have seen a fair bit of them in the past. Do you sort of still keep tabs with them now? And also, I just want to sort of take us back in history. We've been here before. We were just a touch from the greatest striker that ever lived, of course, for going through previously. How do you rate our chances, and what do you sort of think of the current Barcelona that we're coming up against?
Well, they're phenomenal, really. The front three, as the rest of them have said, is just unbelievable. It's probably the best front three in recent memory. It's the amount of goals, the talent, the movement, it's just incredible. And it's going to be really, really difficult for Arsenal to get through this game. But, it's not impossible. Football is not an exact science. I think if you play the game 9 times out of 10, Barcelona are going to win it over 2 legs. We've just got to hope that maybe that one time, we can do it. We've had stronger or strong Barcelona teams against weaker Arsenal teams. And like you said, that night when Bentner, if he'd just taken a right touch from a Wilshere pass, he could have rolled it in and made himself a hero, changed the whole trajectory of his career. He might not have ended up having sex with taxis and not playing for Wolfsburg. These are the small moments in football that can make a difference for a player and also can make a difference for a club. So you just don't know. I think it's hugely difficult. I think they're the best team in Europe by a mile. The idea of facing Messi, Suarez, and Neymar is frightening, really. But I guess the players won't look at it in quite the same way that we do. They want to challenge themselves against these big teams and against these big players. And we don't know what kind of an Arsenal we're going to have when this game comes around at the end of February. Maybe Coquelin will be back. Maybe there were a couple of players who were brought in during the January transfer window. We could be in good shape. You just never know. But look, on paper, Barcelona are clear favourites. Football, thankfully, is not played on paper.
No, absolutely. And just sticking with you as well, for Alexis Sanchez, point to prove, do you think?
Yeah, maybe, to an extent. He might prefer it at Arsenal. Who knows? Where he's got a bit more responsibility. He's a bigger fish in a slightly smaller pond. That might suit him. Certainly, if you look at the way that he was scoring goals last season, that seemed to suit him quite well. But yeah, I think when any player returns to their old club and a club that has sold them, it wasn't that he was agitating to leave. They wanted to sell him so they could get the money to buy Suarez. I think when any player leaves a club in those circumstances, maybe you do redouble your efforts a little bit and just try and, make the point, hey, when I was here, I did all right for you guys. He was a good player for Barcelona. He scored some amazing goals. So, yeah, it'll be fun for him. I think it's good when players like that go back to their old clubs. And I remember the game in 1999 against Barcelona when we went to the Camp Nou, and in the first half, I don't think we touched the ball. It was ridiculous the way they kept possession. It was a real lesson in European football. But in the second half, I think Kanu scored a goal. What was great about it was that it was Davor Suker was playing that night. And he, of course, was a former Real Madrid man. And every time he got the ball, they hated it. They whistled him. And obviously that connection doesn't go down well. So maybe Mesut Ozil is going there as a guy who will want to up his game in Barcelona as well, considering where he came from.
I was there that night, funny enough, and
yeah,
he actually came on a sub, and I have never heard so many whistles and G's and everything else than I've heard that night when he came onto the football pitch. It was incredible.
It was great. I think it's all part of the pantomime, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Suker was involved in the goal to a certain extent as well. And I remember going, did we wear, it was a really weird kit that night or something. We wore the yellow shirts with white shorts. Am I right?
Yeah, it was the yellow Sega shirt with the white home shorts. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were played off the park that night. In the first half, it was ridiculous. Gramondi got sent off as well, didn't he? He elbowed Guardiola in the head. So we bring Gilles over, see if he can sort out a few of them as well. But, that just shows you, doesn't it, that Barcelona were so good then as well. Because they killed us at Wembley. There was the 4-2 game at Wembley. But they were so good, and they played us off the park. And, by rights, they should have won that game very easily. As it was a 1-1 draw. So you just never know. So we'll keep fingers crossed. Look, it's a great European tie, and I'd much rather be involved in this than going somewhere further afield. Even if the Europa League might be a trophy that we've got more chance of winning.
Yeah, absolutely. Geoff, just drawing a line under this Barcelona draw, a lot of our fans will say, and I know you're probably sick to death of hearing this, but a lot of our fans will say, look, we can't win this competition. There's not really much point in us being in it, blah, 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 blah. I mean, what's your thoughts? I mean, this is why we're in the competition, isn't it, to play these big sides? We as much as we'd like to play a Ghent or a Wolfsburg, with no disrespect, we want to play these big giants at our home stadium.
Or Monaco.
Or Monaco, absolutely, well said. But yeah, this is what it's all about, isn't it? This is why we're in the competition, surely.
There's nothing like these big European nights. I love it. I love, under lights and everything else. It's just something. It's something special. I don't know how to explain it, but it is absolutely fantastic. And you don't get bigger than Barcelona. Like the boys have said, they're definitely the best team out there at the moment. And it's going to be an incredible task if we can go through it and do it. But you know what? Pound for pound, over the course of the tournament, I think the Premier League is a detriment to any Premier League team in the Champions League. I honestly don't believe a Premier League team are going to win the Champions League for a number of years, strictly because the Premier League, especially this year, is a lot stronger. I think it's much more competitive. The lesser teams have caught up a little bit with better players. They can pay better wages, and I just think it's tighter. You can go to any football ground in the Premier League and get beat, and I think that's where the problem lies. And I think even if we do get through Barcelona, we'll still find it difficult late on when we've got them FA Cup games in the middle of the Champions League quarters and stuff like that. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And very briefly, Drew, you just wanted to add something quickly to the draw as well?
Yeah, just real fast. I mean, I understand that people get frustrated that we don't make it deep into the competition, and they question why are we even in the competition if we can't win it. But people have to understand that if we're not in Champions League, we don't attract the players necessary to compete in the Premier League either. And that's something that just people don't talk about enough. If we're not getting Champions League football, then we don't get someone like Alexis Sanchez or Mesut Ozil, because they're only going to want to go to top sides who are competing for honors in the league and in European competition. So that's something that just people have to be made aware of and just try to remember from time to time.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well said indeed. Right. I know, Andrew, you need to leave us shortly. So just before you go, I want to just get your thoughts on the Manchester City game before I ask the rest of the guys. You've already touched on what you sort of think maybe the lineup will be and the idea that Alexis might come in. Just give us your thoughts ahead of that game. And what I'm really intrigued to know is, do you think it's a must not lose or a must win?
That's a good question. I think it's probably more a must not lose at this point in the season, given the way that everything else has been going. It is one of those seasons where you can drop points and it's not as fatal as it was certainly last season. I was at the Man City game last season and it was so strange coming out of it because it was one of those games that we should have won but could easily have lost. in the last few minutes after they got an equaliser. So it's a strange one. Their form has been sketchy, but I think against a big team, against Arsenal, they're going to really, really try and up their game. So I think it's down to us to make sure that we deny them opportunities. Going back to the Villa game very quickly. There were a couple of moments that concerned me just defensively, and that's not even to do with Aaron Ramsey and Matthew Flamini in midfield or that we were exposed there. There were a couple of headers that came in for, I think one was for Justed and the other was for Scott Sinclair. And I think had better players had those chances, they probably would have scored or at least troubled Petr Cech. And I think Manchester City, if they can get chances like that, they will be more clinical. So we've got to be a little bit aware of what we need to do defensively. I think at home, the onus is on you to go and try and win the game, but I don't see it as one of those where we really, really have to win. It would be great to come away with 3 points. You take a point, and you just don't want to lose that game because we've got this momentum going into the festive fixtures, and you want to keep that going.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And like you say, I think it's going to be one of those. It's either going to be a really interesting and really exciting game, or it's going to be a really drab affair. But and you can bet your life that Aguero will be fit for that. Sadly, give us your prediction on the score. Give us a score and a first scorer.
Oh God, 2-2 Giroud first scorer.
Lovely job, smashing. Anything you'd like to plug before you leave? Obviously, feel free to mention your podcast and anything that you've got coming up.
No, I mean, look, we'll just have our regular podcast on Friday, the Arsecast Extra next Tuesday, and then of course it's Christmas and all that kind of stuff. So we don't have anything specific going on for Christmas. So no, that's it. Just I got to go and do some errands now. So I'm sure people know where to find me. So it's arseblog.com, and everything you can find on there. You can do what you will with, all free and easy for you to take.
Absolutely. Listen, Andrew, we really appreciate you coming on. I know it's very short notice that I managed to tempt you in this week. So thank you ever so much for giving us your time, and no doubt we will speak to you again soon.
No doubt, my pleasure. Cheers, lads.
Thanks
again,
Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Right then, guys. So thank you to Andrew, as we said. Right, let's move on. I've got a little thing that I want to bring back, which we haven't done for a little while. It's called Stick or Twist. So what I'm basically going to do is I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions each, and I just really want you to give me a stick or a twist answer and just sort of a brief bit of reasoning behind your answer. Okay? So, Dom, I'm going to start with you, and question for you is, as usual, this time of year, we're linked with every player under the sun. What I want to ask you is, do you twist and spend in January, or do you stick to go big in the summer?
I think you have to twist, only because we've got such a good opportunity this year to win the title, and I'd hate for us to get to the end of the season having missed out on the title and not being able to say that we did everything possible to win it.
Well said, well said. I knew I'd get that answer from you. That's why I asked you. I just wanted to double check. Drew, let's ask you this one. Jack Wilshere, Danny Welbeck, Thomas Rosicky, Mikel Arteta. Just a few of our long-term casualties at the club. Come the summer, would you stick, keep them all, keep the faith, it'll change? Or would you twist and sell to the highest bidder?
I hate you for giving me this question.
That's loaded, isn't it?
I mean, I don't know. I think depend on is what we do in January or what our potential business is going to be in the summer. I know a lot of people still have high hopes for Jack Wilshere. The talent is absolutely there, and I know Dom says a lot that he's not as necessarily injury prone by nature as people think. So people can take that into consideration. But the problem is, though, we have so many young midfielders coming through as well. When do you make space for them? And honestly, with Ramsey playing centrally and really coming into form, and Coquelin nailing down that holding midfield spot, is Wilshere going to be happy with rotating sometime? So honestly, I think if someone came in for a rather large bid for Wilshere, I'd actually probably take it and maybe go a little bit of a more continental route and put a faith in one of the young players to replace him. But I would keep the rest and see what happens. I love Rosicky. I'll willing to give Welbeck one more chance, but I think we should let Arteta go, and I know you'll be not happy about that, but yeah.
No, I totally understand why people say that, and I do get it. But no, fair play. Geoff, one for you. The youth team prospects. Andreas Jonker is hard at work to provide the future of Arsenal, hopefully. What I want to ask you is, would you stick that we'll produce a star in the future sometime soon, or would you twist and say we can't really rely on youth anymore and we need to buy ready-made players?
No, I'd stick. I think we will produce. I think, Arsenal's a great club that if they're good enough, they'll come through and they'll get a chance to come through, unlike a lot of other clubs where they just want that success straight away, so they just bypass them and they buy and just send the youngsters out on loan and maybe take a bid from them later on. I think we should stick and have a go at see one or two will come through hopefully.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm in full agreement with you on that one. Don, back to you. Matthew Debucci. Rumours arise that he wants to leave in January. You are now Arsene Wenger. There's a thought. Do you stick and keep the player regardless of whether he sulks or not, or would you twist and sell him and seek short-term cover?
No, I'll stick. I think that he's still got a lot to offer. I don't think Bellerin has been playing fantastic football the last few weeks. I know that would have a lot to do with the fact that the right-hand side keeps chopping and changing, and the partnership he had with Ramsey was quite good. But look, I think there's still a very important role for him to play for us between now and the end of the season. And I think sometimes players need to be reminded that they signed a contract, and as part of the contract, you committed to playing for the club or being at the club for a certain amount of time. So maybe he just needs to pull his socks up and put his head down and force his way back into the side.
Absolutely, well said. I'm completely with you on that. Good agreement so far. Geoff, back to you. Joel Campbell, at the end of the season, given his impressive performances of late, would you stick, keep him at the club and continue his improvement, or would you twist, cash in and look for an upgrade?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I'm going to get lambasted either way, whatever way I go. I think I'd try and cash in. His performances have been very good, so that should bring in a few bids from decent bids from other teams. I think we need a little bit more than Joel Campbell, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. If we're going to challenge on all fronts for the Premier League and the Champions League, he's done a good job. He gives us good balance, but I think we need someone a little bit better. If I'm being honest with you, shame, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, well said. No problem. You're right. I kind of set you up there. I do apologise. Couldn't win either way on that one. The final question for Drew. A bit of a sort of a light-hearted one, this one, but kits. Many haven't been exactly fond of the black, and I'll use black in inverted commas because I still think it's navy blue. But anyway, haven't been a fan of the black kit this year, and with confirmation that Arsenal are going to return to yellow and anthracite as an away shirt for next season, would you stick to traditional colours, or would you twist and enjoy dabbling a little with the extraordinary?
I don't know. I always like to sort of stick to tradition a little bit. So for me, that's that.
Yeah, good stuff. And do you buy the kits every season, regardless of what they're like?
I do not.
It's just me that's part of the problem then. Fair enough. Good stuff. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay, we're going to do listeners' questions now then. We've got quite a few, and I've tried to divide them up into sort of some kind of sections here. So we'll kind of take them bit by bit. The first question I'm going to ask, this is kind of about our midfield, these questions. John Shields, who's at John Shields 80. It's kind of directed at Geoff, but I'll kind of give it to you all here. If Ramsey or Flamini get injured, we have no cover. What's your thoughts? So Geoff, you give us your thoughts, and I'll ask the other guys on theirs after that.
Oh, I don't know. We'll find solutions. I'm sure we will. But again, we're saying if they get injured, by that time, hopefully we've got Jack Wilshere coming back. Again, we've got Arteta to maybe come in. We just got to take it as it comes. We can't just buy 15 midfield players and 7 right wingers and 7 left wingers. We're just going to have to. You've got the Ox as well. He can come in and play centre midfield. I think we'll cope. I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, fair point. On the same subject, Don, we had another question. This one's from a gentleman. I don't even know what language his name on Twitter is in, so I apologise. But his Twitter handle is at SGUNARAJ. His question along the same lines: will we be all right without signing a defensive midfielder in the transfer window and relying on Flamini, Chambers, and in brackets Arteta?
In my opinion, no. I don't think that's when it comes to transfers and stuff, in recent times anyway, sometimes I'll heavily agree with Geoff and sometimes I'll disagree. And the one thing that I disagree on is the defensive midfield position in the team that if you're looking at the start of the season, that's where we shut the nest. We should have gone and bought somebody. And the right player isn't necessarily going to be available. So, you talk about Arsenal quality and we're only going to buy Arsenal quality, but Mikel Arteta and Flamini aren't Arsenal quality to rely on for any period of time. And when you've got such a gap between quality in Coquelin and then the next best available player, that's the concern to me. And I know that, I don't want to be an I told you so person, but this was the concern that I had, that if anything happened to Coquelin for even 6 weeks, that's long enough to have your title challenge and blow up in front of your face. And that was a risk that I personally didn't want us to take. I think it was a silly risk to take. Arteta hasn't been able to prove his fitness over the last couple of years. And lo and behold, he's not been able to stay fit this year either. So you're back down to Flamini. And if he gets injured, then we really are struggling. And you're talking about, again, square pegs in round holes. And if we're going to be considered a proper Premier League giant and a team that, can win titles and push into Champions League, you don't have Flamini and Arteta making do. You have someone a little bit better than those guys that can rotate with Coquelin, push Coquelin out of his spot if they're good enough, a la what Hector Bellerin managed to do with Debussy. The golfing class there, I think, is just too great, and fingers crossed that Coquelin can make a speedy recovery and get back into the side, because when he did come into the side in the first place, he absolutely changed the way we played. I thought that would have been a lesson for the manager to see just how important he was, and to think, well, look how much he changed the way that we play and how much more solid we are back there. I better not just go into next season with the same players. But lo and behold, we didn't. So it's still a bit of a sore spot for me, and I would hate to see it cost us a chance at the title. But if we don't buy early in January, then yeah, I think it will.
Fair point. Drew, the last one on the midfield section I've got here is Syracuse Gooners at Q's Gooners. Will we see Wilshere-Ramsey partnership in the centre of the pitch when Jack returns, or will he be placed on the right?
Honestly, there should never be a Ramsey-Wilshere partnership in the middle. Wilshere came through as a number 10. He's still very forward-thinking in his play. He's not holding midfielder. I know he does it for England, but England play a different system, a different tactical schematic that allows him to do that. He has more midfield cover when he does. And Ramsey, he has got that fantastic engine that, Dom always talks about, and that's very important. But Ramsey does like to get forward. He likes to get into the box, even into the 6-yard box if he can. And Wilshere does like to get on top of the box or even into it as well. So who's going to play the holding role at that point? And then if you stick them into that role they're not comfortable with, then you take out a lot of things they offer and further forward that then we're going to be missing in the final third. So no, I don't think you should see that partnership. I don't know if I want to see Ramsey out on the right, not because he's proven that he can adapt, and that he did a few things there that was good. He had that partnership with Bellerin that Don mentioned that was actually coming through, and they were building upon that, which was great. But his performances in the last few matches through midfield shows that that's where he belongs. So I'd rather keep giving Joel Campbell a run of things to see, if he can really kind of nail down that first team spot until people come back fit. Rotate him with Ox. Ox needs a run of games to show that he has any amount of quality that we want. And I know Simon brought that up on the radio show, or was it the last pod, where he needs that he can't just keep coming off the bench for for 15, 20 minutes every time. He needs to get some starts too. So if you rotate those guys on the right, you leave Ramsey in the middle, you have Wilshere as that first choice off the bench for the center and midfield. I think that's a little bit better.
Good stuff. I'm kind of inclined to agree with you on that one. I know, Dom, you wanted to add something to that little sort of question as well.
Yeah, it is an interesting question that does get asked a lot, but it's not one that we've never really needed to answer before. These guys have both been in the team for a long time, but they've never both been in form and fit for any period of time for this to even be a discussion point. That's the crazy thing, isn't it? That I hope that it becomes an issue. I hope it is something that we really have to stop and think about. But at the moment, they've never both been in form and fit. And that central midfield battle between the two is exactly what I want to see in the defensive midfield spot.
Yeah, well said. Right, let's get on to another question then. This is just about the Champions League draw. I'll stick with you, Dom, actually, for the first part of this. From North at North Armoury. He says, what are your expectations for Arsenal versus Barca? Expect us to sit back and take a 0-0 draw in London, etc. So I guess what he's saying is, how do you think the sort of ties will play out? I know we've touched on the draw, but the games itself.
I think regardless of what we want to do in our heads, Barcelona are going to control most of the game. That's just how good they are. They're going to have the ball a lot. It depends. Are we going to sit back or are we going to press? I think at home we might go through spurts. Maybe for the first half we might sit back and just, settle into the game and not get overrun by a team that is, the best in the world at the moment, and settle into the game and maybe try to have a few. Well, we're good enough to counter-attack against anybody. I mean, the quality that we have got running forward is just, it is A-level with if you've got a Walcott, an Ozil, a Ramsey all running forward. So we can score against anybody, but it just depends on, are we able to keep them out, and are we able to get the ball back? And if we press too hard, then it leaves us open as well if they pass through it. And look, I think it's going to be interesting, but I don't think we're the kind of team, and Arsene Wenger's not the kind of manager that will want to go for a draw. I don't think that's his style. I think that we'll be going for it. I'll be interested to see what Geoff thinks about that, actually.
Yeah, I think we'll be cautious. I don't think we can, I don't think any team in any right mind would set up against Barcelona and just go attack. We will be cautious. I think we'll go for the first 5 or 10 minutes to try and have a little go at them, and then settle back into the game. Let Barcelona do their thing, because they're going to come at you. They're going to attack and try and get that away goal. And hopefully, like what you did say, what I did listen to is, we're good at counter-attacking. We can catch them. I think we can. I think we can have a right good go at them. I don't see any reason why not. I do worry that if they get 2 away goals, it's going to be curtains, isn't it, for us? That's the problem. Even if we go there at 2-2, it's still going to be very, very difficult. So I think it's going to be difficult. That's all I can say.
Fair point. Drew, last one on the draw from Rohan Naidu. I believe you pronounce it. He's at Tekka Endrak O2C, I think. Is our midfield the key to success against Barcelona?
Yeah, I mean, I'd imagine so, because the back four has got to sit deep against that front three, so it's going to be up to Flamini and Ramsey. They have to sweep the front of them. They have to be that shield. Flamini can't get caught going forward. Sometimes he does do that. He's got to sit deep almost the whole match, and that's just how it has to be. Because if we turn the ball over in Barcelona's half, they're not just always built on possession now. They can counterattack brilliantly through that front three, so Flamini has to anticipate that. So he's got to sit deep as well. I'm not worried about Ramsey, because he's got that engine. He can go box to box for 90 minutes, and we don't have a concern. He can also press the ball very well. So if he presses, Iniesta or Rakitic, that battle with Rakitic is going to be key. So no, I do think the game could be won and lost in midfield, but the problem is once Suarez or Neymar or Messi get the ball, you could be in trouble. So they don't even need the midfield necessarily. So it's just, but we have to shield the back four properly, and that's the first step. So if we do that well, then I think we have a decent chance of winning the midfield battle.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, let's move on to. This is a really good question, actually. Who should I give this one to? I won't throw you under the bus for this one, Geoff. I'll give it to Dom. It comes from Neil McKeown, and he says, "Hey lads, he's at McKeown_AFC, by the way. Hey lads, should Arsene be building a larger squad each year to compensate for injuries? I know this could result in unsettled players, but is that not part of his job to adapt and manage players?"
Oh, obviously it's part of his job to adapt and manage players, but I think he does an extremely good job of that. I think it's one of his best qualities, to be honest. And you look at what Jose Mourinho is dealing with at the moment at Chelsea. Their squad's bigger than ours, and yet they've got so many out of form players all at the same time. And he goes and throws them under the bus after press conferences, and it's just. Look, I think we always look with rose-tinted goggles on, and we don't sit back and have a look from an outsider perspective of how other teams are going. I mean, Louis van Gaal's not exactly doing a fantastic job of man-managing at Manchester United. It's a very difficult skill to have. Even Pep Guardiola at Bayern Munich isn't sort of renowned for getting along with all the players all the time, and yet all you hear out of the Arsenal camp is how it's a little family and how everybody gets along with each other. So that's one aspect of it. But the other one, I guess, is the building of the squad. And I think sometimes he is his own worst enemy, and he puts a little bit too much faith in these players. I know that it sounds like I'm having a dig at Arteta, but it's not his fault that he got offered a contract. That's a decision that the club made, and what are you going to do if you're the captain of the team and they offer you another year? You're going to take it, aren't you? Riziki, the same thing. They got him to stay. I understand that he may have wanted to move on. So again, it's the club's decision there to keep these older players around, which I don't think has actually been of benefit to us this season. You want some experience in the squad, but I think with Cech, with Koscielny, with Mertesacker, even with Giroud. There's enough experience throughout that team now that we don't really need to be hanging on to those kind of players anymore. And that's where I guess part of that question is, I would agree with that, is that we should have been trying to, not necessarily, I wouldn't call those players dead wood, but I would definitely think that if you can go out into the transfer market and find someone better than your first 11, then you do it. And if you can't find someone better than your first 11, can you find someone better than the next 5 players? And I think in our case, we probably could have. So, not signing an outfield player, without sounding too harsh, I think it's completely arrogant to think that there's nobody out there that could have improved our squad. We're not that great to think that there was nobody that moved in the summer that wasn't going to be able to come in and make us a better team. So, that's the thing with Arsene Wenger, is that what he does throughout the season is fantastic, but then in the summertime, I guess it is a frustrating thing to have to sit through and want the team to become better on paper, but also at the same time, there's so many things like Geoff brings up all the time that you don't really consider. It's not Football Manager. You do have to worry about the balance of the team. You can't bring in players that are going to upset the squad. So I think he does a good job of balancing it, but, even he would admit that he makes mistakes sometimes.
Yep, I think you make some very good points there. Drew, I'm going to give this next one to you. It's kind of 2 questions in one, but I'm conscious of time, so I'll kind of combine them. They come from @Andy8431 and Fred Turbin @RLF86. Now, Andy's question is, where do you see Pep Guardiola going? Now, we've had the announcement today that he is going to leave Bayern Munich, and I promise you, I wrote this question last night, or I applied for these questions last night, I should say. And the second part of the question from Fred was, given Arsene's age, should we not replace him when the manager is available rather than wait for him to retire? So I'll kind of combine the two into one there.
I hate you for giving me this question because you know what I'm going to say, and I think that's why you did it.
Yeah.
I think Pep's going to go to City. To be honest, if City doesn't win the league, I think Pellegrini might be gone, not because he's not done a brilliant job, but because City are in a position now where they spend all this money because they want to win the league every year. So I think he's going there. And there's actually Otmar Hitzfeld's come out and said that he actually believes, through things that he said, that he believes that that's where he's going to. City aren't a project. Pep doesn't go to projects if people really are paying attention. He came through Barca. He coached Barca B. And then he came up and was their coach, and the squad was already made. Sans maybe 1 or 2 additions he made. Then he goes to Bayern, who were already the top dogs in that league, and he made 1 or 2 good moves in the market, made them a little bit better, and now, as you can tell, they're far and away the league leaders right now. If he goes to City, he doesn't have a lot of work. He has a war chest that he can spend on if he wants to. I just don't see him coming to Arsenal. I know people want him at Arsenal. I don't. I haven't. I never will. I won't go into why. So that's that part. And the other question is about Wenger's age. You said, yeah.
Yeah, just replacement essentially.
I mean, it's one of those things where, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, and I have not ever had a chance to really talk to Geoff about this stuff, honestly. But for me, because Wenger has given us so much stability in the club in a number of areas, he's going to be tough to replace, because you have to replace Wenger with more stability. I think the club thrives on consistency and continuity, and if we go through a string of 4 managers in 7 years, I think that's actually going to be more detrimental than positive. So I feel like he'll step down. I've always think that he would leave his contract early if he felt the proper manager was ready. Klopp was available, he didn't leave. Pep might be available, I doubt he would leave for that. I really feel like he wants to know for a fact that the club's in the right hands before he leaves. Whether that's before his contract's done or not is another matter. So I think it's just really up to him, honestly.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Dom, you wanted to ask Geoff something on this subject?
Yeah, if hypothetically, if Arsene Wenger was to win the Premier League this season, would that be something that he would want to leave on a high note, knowing that maybe a Pep Guardiola would be available to come in? Or would he be the type of person that would think, you know what, I've just won it after all that time and effort with the stadium build and struggling financially, that he's got the team that he wants. If he was to win, do you think he'd want to then continue on for maybe another season or even more?
Yeah, I think he'd want to continue on. I mean, it's not as if he's crumpled and a wreck. You understand me? He's still a very, very fit man. He's still very astute. I think he's bright. You see some of the stuff that LVG comes out with. It's incredible. He's not that type of manager. He's still very fit. Pep, if he come up at the end of the season, would Wenger, say, okay, you take over, you're the man for the job? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Like I say, I think that Wenger's still got another 3 or 4 years in him. I really do. I think, especially if we went on to win the league this year, I think he'd go full blast next year and have a really, really good go at the Champions League. With regard to Pep, I honestly don't think Pep would come and take the challenge at Arsenal because he knows he's still got a lot of work to do. He's got 2 or 3, more. He's got 5 or 6 teams in Europe that are ahead of him. That are more powerful than us with regards to bringing in players for transfers and wages and etc. I just think that he's got an easier ride, like Drew covered. He's got an easier ride at maybe like Manchester United or Manchester City. I think he'd prefer those because it's a big challenge if you take over from Arsene Wenger. At Arsenal Football Club because of the reasons Arsenal's been there for such a long time. It's like a poison chalice. All I worry about is, and would I take Pep at the end of the season knowing he could produce the same as what he's produced in the past? Yes, I would, definitely, because it would definitely unite the whole fan base. Do I think he would do as good as Wenger or match him with the trophies and stuff like that? I'm really, really not sure, honestly. The Premier League is a different league. He had a fantastic youth team when he went to Barcelona. He took over. He had all them players that came through. Then he bottled out the job. He said, I can't take the pressure anymore. I want a year off. Had a year off. Then he went to Munich, had that best team, a fantastic team, and he's continued it. We haven't got that at Arsenal. We're still building, aren't we? And I think it'd be too much of a challenge for him. He can do it. He can get an easier run elsewhere.
Yeah, some very good points, Jess. Some very good points. Okay, let's move on to another question then. Let's rattle through a couple of these. Actually, I want to stick with you, Geoff, just briefly because this is a really, really good question, and it was kind of directed at you as well. It comes from Andrew, who sent us several questions, but this was the best one. He's at Andrew Vinod. He says, should Arsenal buy, quote unquote, smaller clubs in other countries like City did, and therefore increase our brand?
It's a good question, isn't it? I just don't think that Arsenal are that type of club. I'm not sure that we're that type of club. Obviously, and I'm not even sure if it even works. Chelsea have got clubs in Russia, haven't they? And City are as well. They've got other clubs. I'm not sure. Why do you buy these clubs? What is it the purpose of? You put players out on loan and see how they're doing in European leagues. I mean, can't we do it anyway?
Yeah, I think there's certainly an argument for that, and as you say, it's whether you actually get any benefit from it or not. That's the biggest question. Right, let's steer into choppy waters. Dom Joseph at RTZ_Joey simply asks, are we buying anyone in January?
Oh God, I think we need to. I think that he has to. If he doesn't buy anybody in January and he thinks that the squad's good enough to go on and win the league, then he's really is digging his own grave there. Because if he buys somebody and we don't, then hey, look, we gave it our best shot with what we had. If he decides that we're good enough with the injuries that we have and the length of the injuries that we have, and we don't go on to win, then it's pretty difficult to defend. And I don't think he's that silly. It is a matter of finding. This is the thing, right? Is that if you wait until January and you take that risk at the start of the season, then it's compounded because now he's in a situation where he's probably not likely to find the exact player that he wants. So that means going out and spending 10 to 20 million on a player that potentially isn't, the level of what would be available if you did wait another 6 months until the summer. So that's the big toss up there, is that you think, well, is a player available that he thinks can contribute enough that it is worth it, and that's going to be the big question.
Yeah, I know both panelists want to come in on that. Geoff, do you want to come in on that first of all?
Yeah, I think that we might have a little bit of luck this January, because simple reason is obviously we've got the Euros at the end of the season, and players are not getting a game in their teams. They want to get away, and we've had this situation with players that we've got, with Debussy and stuff. There's a good chance. There's a good chance that we might get somebody on the strength of if they kick up enough fuss. Hopefully, we'll maybe even grab someone on loan, just to get us through that period.
You're going to get 1,000 tweets tonight, Geoff. You know that. When this is released, you're going to get everybody crawling out going, "Who are we buying, Geoff? What do you know?" Hope you're prepared. Drew, one of the teams that I think are ripe for the picking is Sevilla. We've been linked with a couple of their players. What's your thoughts on this?
The bloggers did, that 3-part special about, how do we solve the midfield crisis and whatnot. And actually, I did say that, I would welcome Grzegorz Krychowiak, in a heartbeat. He has that release clause that, it's not out of our means financially to go and spend money for it. But the problem is, will Arsene Wenger want to go out and spend, 25 million pounds in January? Because then your concern is, despite his quality, he has to come and he has to bed to a new league, a new way of playing. A new team, and he's had to do that quickly because of who he'd be replacing. So that's what makes January so tricky. So unless Wenger's been working day and night, burning midnight oil to make sure that we get a signing the minute the window opens, so they have a maximum amount of time to get used to the way we do things, it's going to be difficult. And a lot of fans are starting to ask that question: are we bringing in XYZ? We need somebody. I do agree with Dom. We need somebody. But again, like he highlighted, it's going to be even harder to find the quality that we actually do need. And like Jeff said, the Euros this summer, but anyone who is in the bloodstream for the national call up for the Euro right now is probably already getting first team football. And people who aren't getting first team football aren't probably getting it for a reason and probably aren't our quality. So that's the problem. And people are mentioning like Granit Xhaka, can we get Granit Xhaka? Go out, get Granit Xhaka, or Lars Bender. It gives me absolute headaches sometimes. Because people just don't think of transfers how they should be. But I won't go too much into it. But do we need someone? Yes. Will we get somebody? I don't know. I don't have the answers. But the money is there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will see what happens. Right, there's a couple more questions to get through, and then we'll just wrap up with a Man City predictions and shout-outs. But keep your answers short on these guys because most of them are transfer related. But I want to get them touched on. Dom Ahmed Nada, who's at Gizaguna, he wants to ask if we buy somebody, should they be for our starting 11 and potentially kill somebody's Arsenal career? I love that word, killing their career. Or should we buy somebody sort of for the bench/squad who may not be of the highest quality?
Well, you go after the big fish first, right? Obviously you look at trying to improve the team and give the team as best chances possible to win the Premier League. That's the manager's job. That's the manager's role. The manager can't be too concerned with killing somebody's career or potentially bringing somebody in and upsetting a player in the side, because if a player's coming in, it's probably for a very good reason. It's good to have that competition in the squad. You're always going to have injuries, rotations and things. Coquelin was never, even if he remained fit, should never have been made to play 50-odd games in the season. He needs to be able to rest and rotate, and someone can come in and potentially take his spot if he produces enough. So, look, you go out and you try to find the A-list player, and if not, then definitely this time around, I think that it is pretty important that we get somebody in for sure.
Yeah, sure. Good stuff. Geoff, Dave Sager at Guna Dave 66, friend of the pod. Somebody wants to know if a 32-year-old Javier Mascherano is available for $5 million in June, should we buy? I know other friend of the pod, FK, said yes, we should absolutely. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I would definitely. He's got that experience. Does a great job. He could sit in front of that back four, can't he? And he would. He's that player that could get you through to the end of the season, especially he's that type of player that you need in big games. Them last 10 games when it really, really matters, when the old twitcher's going a little bit, it'd calm the nerves a little bit. But, it's difficult, isn't it? Wenger goes home after watching football, watching all the players at Arsenal, and he goes home and he watches more football. He's got all them scouts out all over the place watching players. He's well informed on who's available and who's not available. I just think everyone gets frustrated with it. But he's a man of great experience. He's got great contacts all over the world. If a player that becomes available that he fancies, he will go and get him. If they're not available, then there's not a lot we can do about it. And at the same time, we're going to have to let him deal with it. We must trust him. If he thinks his players that he's got can get us through to the end of the season and win the league, then just trust him on it.
Yep. Yeah.
Geoff, I've got a quick question on that if I can.
Go on, Dom.
this is I want to know what you would do. Would you be happy to overpay for someone, knowing that it's January, knowing that it's something that he's never done before? I don't think that Arsene Wenger has ever overpaid for a player, and I think it's something that he would really struggle to do. He would really struggle to bring himself to really, know that a player's worth 15 million, but have to pay 25 just to get him. Do you think that that's something that he could do, and is it something that you would do this January?
I don't. I've got absolutely no doubt he would overpay if he had to. If the player was available, he would pay the extra money to get that particular player. But there's a limit. I mean, he paid £42 million for Mesut Ozil, and at the time that was a lot of money. Fantastic player, don't get me wrong, and I think he was cheap, but it was a lot of money for Wenger. I think his previous one was £18 million for Andre Arshavin, and I was surprised. Trust me, but he would overpay if the right player comes along, and the money's there. He would overpay. But what comes with that? If you start giving big transfer fees, then you've got to give big wages as well. That is where it gets a little bit of a niggly point. If you're starting to pay a man £200,000 per week, then you get other people banging on the door, and it just upsets the apple cart. At other clubs, they do it; they just get on with it. I'm not sure we can do that at Arsenal. I just don't. I'm not sure that we could cope with that type of. But at the same time, he would overpay. He would overpay if he needs to. I do believe it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Drew, I'm just drawing a line into sort of named player. Well, actually, we've got one more, but another name that's floated is from a friend of the pod, Tim JB Haag. He says Toulon might be available in January as well, can fill in at centre back and defensive midfield, so covers two gaps in the squad. Should Arsene Wenger try and sign him or not?
I mean, obviously I know of him. I have not seen him for a while because I don't watch the game, and that's more your speed. But he could do a job. He is a French international. He has been playing at at the top level for a long time. He can fit multiple roles. So but depends on what the money would be. If his value is one thing, but we on one another, will we pay that extra to get us over the hump to get him in? So, I guess in a pinch I would take him, but he's not exactly who I would take or would want to take. But I would if it's not up to me, but I would take him.
Less fashionable name, so to speak. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Last couple then. This one is from Pendit Like Bentner. He's at Mr. Gustavez0. He says, Dom, you can have this one. Do you think Chuba Akpom will make it at Arsenal, or will he do an Afobe?
Oh, it's so difficult for those young kids to crack into that first team when you've got, especially in the position that he's going to be trying to make it in with Theo and Giroud up top, Alexis on one side. Potentially there's a little space on the right-hand side, but I know that the manager really likes to have more of a midfield-minded player on one of those sides. We see that with Oxlade-Chamberlain on one and Alexis on the other. The ball gets given away way too much, which is why Ramsey, has been played out there when he was fit. So for him in particular, extremely difficult for him to crack into that side. And he's going to have his opportunities. He's on loan at the moment, and if he produces enough, then he's going to force his way into the side. But look, to be honest, if you're just going with logic and odds and what's happened in the past, you'd probably say no. Unless he's an exceptional talent that somehow springs along, then the odds aren't great. But you've just got to hope, I guess, because he's got a little bit about him, but I haven't really seen enough of him play, to be honest, to see if it's going to be something that he's, is he going to be able to come in and take Giroud's spot or take Walcott's spot or Alexis? I don't think so. And those guys will be around for another few years yet, and he might not want to wait that long for his chance. He might want to go somewhere else.
The fact we let him go when we didn't have a huge amount of cover says quite a lot to me, I think. Drew, a quick one here. Theo Hoffinger at Gunnar Borus with an E. He says, who should be Arsenal captain when Arteta and Per retire or leave?
I don't know. For me, probably I would go with Koscielny or Ramsey, honestly. I like to always have... in my experiences playing, the captain is always in the spine. And Ramsey he has shown that leadership, for Wales. And he also leads by example. Just that engine, he's always constantly running. The communication that he brings to the center of the park. I think that's important. We haven't had that in a while. So, Geoff just brought up Czech as well, but I guess you could make, Czech captain and then one of those two guys vice captain. But I think the long-term captain for, the next however many years, +4 would probably, in my mind, would be Ramsey. So.
Good stuff. Well, just quickly for the other guys, Geoff, you go with Petr Cech, would you?
Yeah, Petr Cech, he's done everything, hasn't he? Great experience. I don't think anyone would no one would be offended if they made him captain, if you get what I mean.
Gets my vote as well. Dom, anybody different?
No, I think I've got to go with that. I don't think there's a clear cut, number one candidate, to be honest. So yeah, Petr Cech's just got that experience and calmness, and apparently he's really good in the dressing room as well. So I think he ticks all the boxes for sure. And he'll be around for another couple of years yet, at least at a very, very high level. So, I don't want anyone thinking that it's going to only be another season before he goes. He's still got another good 2 or 3 years left yet.
Interesting that nobody elected to bring back Szczesny and make him captain. Moving on. Final question. I'm going to give this one to you, Geoff. I don't know whether people are sniffing for information here, but 2 people have asked the same question. And it's from at CJOR1172. That's Carl O'Reilly. And also from Will Ellis 1984. They both want to know about Kokorin, the Russian striker. They want to know a bit about him, which I'm quite happy to do in a second. But they want to know if there's anything in these rumours that we've done a deal, that the deal's close, that it's going to happen. Anything you can share with us on that one?
I have absolutely no knowledge on Kokorin at all. I can't even remember seeing the lad play. I haven't got any information at all with regard to Kokorin either. I'll go as far as to say as he got very close to a player in the German league, in the Bundesliga in the summer. Central midfield, combative central midfield player. Whether there's a chance to going back in and nicking him in January, I don't know. I'd hope so, because it would be a fantastic signing. We'll leave it at that.
I've got a feeling I know who you mean there, but I'll leave it for the listeners to work it out. Just quickly then, Alexander Kokorin, what do we know? He's 24 years of age, currently playing for Dynamo Moscow in the Russian league. He's always played his football in the Russian league for Dynamo Moscow and briefly at Anzhi Machkala, but he didn't actually play for them, so it doesn't really count. What do we know? Well, he's fairly pacey. He's a decent target man. I think it's more potential than anything else. So, yeah, I think it would be that kind of signing that might come in and do a job. I don't think it would be. It's not going to be the name that's going to excite fans, if I'm completely honest. But who knows? We have picked out players before that were an option and nobody'd ever heard of, and they went on to be stars. So if we could get somebody in who could just lighten the load up front, then maybe so. Watch this space. Just as an aside, I'm going to ask this last question. I'm going to ask this one to Dom because it's just a little light-hearted one from Syracuse Gooners. He says, who would win a steel cage match between Gimli and Danny?
Oh, that's tough. I don't know that. It depends what time of day it is, and it depends how awake Gimli is. I think Danny would fight dirty too. I think he'd he wouldn't use the reversing sound on his wheelchair, and so Gimli wouldn't hear him coming.
And he'd also have like a lead pipe smuggled into the wheels or down the back of the chair just to nip him around the ankles with, I guarantee it. Good. Right. Okay. That's all the questions then. So all that remains to be done then is a quick predictions for the Manchester City game from you all. Drew, I'm going to start with you. Can we get your prediction and first goal scorer for Man City?
First goal scorer for City?
Or well in general.
I'm actually going to go 2-0 Arsenal. Giroud first scorer. City struggle on the road and they don't score a lot of goals away from home. So, yeah.
And can you, Dom?
I'm going to say Monreal calf strain second half.
Yeah, I like that. That's what you've been doing lately, haven't you, Dom?
You cheeky monkey.
Yeah. I'm off the predictions now. I'm going with injury predictions now. I don't know how many points Danny's giving me, but
I think that you predicted Monreal. You've been predicting Monreal for a while now, though.
Yeah. He's been doing a fair bit of work. I'm just waiting for him to get a bit of a kick or something. I think he's time. Maybe Ozil as well. He's starting to play a little bit too much, but I'm not gonna jinx Ramsey by saying Ramsey because that's the obvious one. So I'm gonna go Monreal.
Okay, no worries. Geoff, what's your thoughts? I think I might know where you might go with this one.
Yeah, I think you've got a good idea, mate. But I'm going to change it a little bit. I fancy Man City are going to go 1-0 up. With that chap up, with the chap they got playing up front, the little Argentinian kid. What's his name?
Aguero.
Aguero, yeah, that's him. I fancy he'll play and he'll score, but I think we'll nick it. I think we'll win 2-1.
Interesting. Just to throw mine into the mix, I'll say 1-1, and I also think Aguero will score first. So yeah, there we go. Okay, let's have some shout outs from you all then, and we'll wrap this baby up. Start with Drew. Who do you want to give a mention to, Drew?
I'll take care of it for you and I both. Just what we're doing over Football Hipsters podcast. Come check it out. We don't just talk about the Premier League, talk about all the major leagues. Talk about Champions League as well, Europa League, the Euro. We do some blogs, podcasting. Come give us a shout. We're having a lot of fun there.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, that we're at the FH podcast. If anyone has any interest in that, Dom, who do you want to give us a shout?
Well, since you're a newly converted stats man, Kris, I think that it's only fair that we give a good shout out to our good pal, other Geoff, and his website that he has, smarteta.com, which is smrteta.com. It is actually really interesting. You can go on there and have a look at what the current Premier League table's doing in terms of goals scored, goals conceded, and total shot ratios, and it is a really interesting little look to see when, a few weeks ago the question was asked, can Chelsea get back into the top 4, and a lot of people were still saying yes, and because of that website I was saying absolutely not, and lo and behold they're still an absolute shit show, which is rather entertaining. So go on there and have a bit of a look, and do yourselves a favour.
Absolutely, and I should say, Geoff has converted me. He let me in on some magic the other night. I can't divulge what that magic was, but I saw something, and my head was turned. So thank you very much, Geoff. And it wasn't in rude, so put your minds back in the drawer, people. Geoff, who do you want to give a shout to this week?
You know what? I've not got anybody set up, so I'm going to go to my timeline and find the last person that tweeted me with any kind of sensible remark or article. And TJG Marks, Marks, as happens, he's he's a good tweeter. You should follow him. He's a good lad. We don't agree on a lot of stuff, but he's always fair and he's respectable. So get following him. He's a good lad.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Mine is I'm going to give it to Kelly. She's been helping me out a lot with our other pods and various bits and bobs. She's a sweetheart. So at Kelly_Mayer. And also, just as an aside, I want to briefly just mention condolences to the family of Arnold Peralta, who a lot of people probably won't know a lot about, but he had a brief spell at Rangers. He's a Honduran international and was shot dead. Tender age of 28, I believe, last week. So it's a real sad loss for football when anybody is taken that early, but particularly in that circumstance. So just for sort of fans of world football and whatnot, I just want to sort of give a nod to that. And of course, we should mention as well, I know Gimli did last week, but the touching tribute to Ernie Crouch, which I think if you go on social media, you'll see that there was a nice little tribute done. Geoff, do you want to just say a few words, because you weren't here last week when we did the tribute then?
You know, I've met Ernie on a few occasions outside Highbury mainly. I've not seen him for a number of years. A lovely old fella. Been going since the year dot, and it's a terrible tragedy that happened to him. The way he passed, unfortunately. But I understand Arsenal are planning something. So if you're going to be at the game, guys, if anyone listeners goes to the game, let's get there a little bit early, because I think there might be something geared up for it, just to play a little bit of tribute and show what a classy club Arsenal are.
Yeah, the club handled it very well, I thought. Really, really nice. Some sort of touching bits and bobs, as you say. There's some more to come. So good. Really appreciate that, and what a legend. I mean, can't really say any more than that, can you? Just what a legend. And I should say, Drew, you're absolutely right. Peralta sadly was killed at 26, not 28. So sad times, but we'll leave it on a happy note. Let's keep it Arsenal. Let's hope we get the result against Manchester City. We're heading into a very busy Christmas period, so keep an eye on our podcast feed, and also obviously the radio show, and indeed the blogs will be continuing throughout Christmas. I've even managed to hook enough people to do a radio show on Boxing Day, so keep your ears tuned and keep your eyes on the Twitter account. We'll be bringing you as much as we can over the festive period. But all that remains to be said this evening is a massive thank you to Gimli for putting his faith in me hosting this evening, and indeed happy birthday again, and also thank you to Danny, who will return soon, and thank you very much to my guests, to Geoff, to Dom, and to Drew.
Pleasure to have me.
You're welcome.
Thank Thank you.
And that has been a Bergkamp Wonderland. Keep it Arsenal, and we will speak to you soon. Nanu, Danny's cheeky monkeys.
He's not
I was going to say, it's not quite the same without that.
No, it's not, is it?
No.
I think that we'll be going for it. I'll be interested to see what Geoff thinks about that, actually.
You know what? Sorry, I was on Twitter at the time. I beg your pardon.
You just totally throw me under the bus, Geoff. Chris was asking.
I was typing and trying to get through at the same time. I beg your pardon. Go breeze over
That's
it again,
right.
Dom, just quickly.
Chris was just asking what I thought we might set up like against Barcelona, how the game's going to play out, and I said that I don't think that Arsene Wenger's the type of manager that's going to sit back for a draw, especially at home.
No.
So it'll be an interesting game. I just wanted to see what you thought.